NDAs 112 disclosure of interest in other entities. So why this comes in is you have something interest. Interest means holding. Not only holding, you give loan. That will come. Not only loan, they have director, common directors who you control. They will come. These are the common interest you see. Or sometimes your relative may be there. That can also be a common interest. You'll see in detail. The objective of the standard is to require an entity to disclose information that enables the user of financial statement to evaluate the nature and the risk associated with the interest with other entities. What is the nature, risk associated and interest with other entities, and the effect of those interests on the financial position, financial performance, and cash flow. So you are holding, so through that interest, how my company's financial positions, and financial performance, financial cash flow is being affected. PPC position, performance, and cash flow is affected. A standard shall be applied by the entity that has an interest in the subsidiary and joint arrangement in joint operation with a joint venture associated or an unconsolidated structure entity. Significant judgment and assumption. The entity shall disclose information about the significant judgment and assumption. Entity need to disclose that. And it has been made and it changes that the judgment and assumption is determined. It has control to of another entity that is investee. It had control of the entity, how much they control through the investee, and have a joint control of management, arrangement, or significant influence over other entity. So they have joint control of this entity, this company. We both has paid this much investment. So through that, we are controlling this investment, or we have significant influence because we power the manpower. We provide supplies. We are the whole consumer of that company, such a way. The type of joint arrangement, a joint operation, a joint venture, when the arrangement has been structured through separate vessel. Um, how investment entity status. And a parent determines that it is an investment entity is accordance with the NDAs 112. Investment entity shall disclose information about significant judgment. An assumption it has made determining that it has an investment entity. So investment entity, to understand this, you need to know one thing. What investment entities according to NDAs 110. So they invest something that is as per NDAs 110. And an investment entity shall disclose information about a significant judgment and assumption it has made in determining that it is an investment entity. So to say that it is an investment entity, how can you say through such a judgment? So this is the judgment we have, this is the assumption we have, this much control we have put in, or this much money we have put into through that agreement, to the contractual obligation, to the contractual asset. Such a way we are saying that this is an investment. The investment entity does not have one or more of the typical characters of investment entity. It shall disclose its reason for concluding that it is a nevertheless an investment entity. When two or three doesn't match, even though it's an investment entity, something criteria has to be matched. If it didn't, if, even though they didn't match, they consider them as an investment entity. You need to say why they are considering this as an investment entity and why not it is considered as an investment entity. The disclosure to be made. When an entity becomes or ceases to be an investment entity, it shall disclose a change in status and the reason for the change. When a company is not been set as an investment company, in the previous year it's an investment company. Now the current year that is not an investment company. Why? What is the reason for change? So why there is a change? Then need to disclose in the financial statement. In addition to an entity that becomes an investment entity, shall disclose the effect of changes in status of financial statement for the period representing include total fair value as a date of change in status of the subsidiaries that cease to be consolidated. In the consolidated, the fair value being changed now, why that it change, and date of change, why when it comes to the effect of the change, the reason for the change, and reason for the change in subsidiaries also we need to give. total gains and loss of any in this considering investment. Through this investment, how much gain, how much loss we has accumulated in this year, and the line item profit loss or in which the gain or loss is recognized, it may be presented separately. Sometimes a company may be in the hedge fund management. Their goal is to put money, or their goal is to do different project with joint venture. Now the problem happens is they have a related many projects they have. So each project line wise, what is the profit, what is the gain you need to show, not cumulatively. Interest in subsidiaries. Entity shall disclose information that enables a user of consolidated financial statement to help the user in a that in understanding the composition of the group, the interest of controlling interest have and group activities and cash flow. So why they need to disclose the interest? First, they need to understand composition of group. These are the group. This group of company. They are linked. That way we need to understand. Second, interest that non-controlling interest have a group activity and cash flow. So through that, we can see what is controlling and what is non-controlling interest that group has, and what is the cash flow of it. Also, we can see evaluate it. What is the evaluate? Nature external significant restrictions on the ability to access, use, or settle the liabilities of the group. So how you can access the asset liability and settle the liabilities, how the group function we can evaluate it. The nature or a change in the risk associated with the interest in accordance consolidated structural entities. Uh, what kind of risk that is arising from, and what in the consolidated structure entity we can see the consequence of change in the ownership interest. There is a change in the ownership interest, how it is changed, and in the subsidiary, and they do not result in loss of control. So, how do the ownership interest and subsidiary and they do not result in loss of control? Oh, so the party is holding this much in this company, and how much do another party need to hold to control that entity? Such kind of idea we can evaluate it. How we need to increase to prevent our loss of control that we can go through it. The consequence of losing control of subsidiary during the reporting period. We may lose the power anytime during the financial year if some opponent increase their holding in this investment. We can control it. So how to prevent our losses, prevent our loss of control? We can see entity shall disclose each of the subsidiaries that having a non-controlling interest NCI that is material to the reporting entity of information required by the standard. Information include proportion of voting rights held by NCI. It is different from the proportion of ownership interest held, the profit and loss allocated to NCI in the subsidiary during the reporting period. Accumulating NCI of the subsidiary at the end of reporting period summarize the financial information about the subsidiaries. So the non-controlling interest, we will see the what is the proportion of voting rights for the non-controlling interest. What is the controlling interest? What is the that we can say voting we can see then the difference in proportion of ownership interest the profit and loss allocation. So NCA what is the voting power profit and non-voting power profit you can see how much they are sharing in the during the year and cumulative NCA subsidiary at the end of the reporting period. If any subsidiary received who getting the main gain that we can also see through this interest in unconsolidated subsidiaries. Investment entity shall disclose the name of such unconsolidated subsidiary. Every time in consolidated financial statement, we will say these are the companies we are holding more than 20%, more than 30%, 40%, 50%. So we are bringing into the books of account. Sometimes we may not hold 40%, we may only hold 2%, 5%. So we need to say which are the entities, how much we hold, we can say. And the principal place of business and the country is incorporated and different from the principal place of business of such consolidated subsidiaries. Not only the name of them, where it has been located, name, now place, any country, the proportion of ownership interest held by the investment entity, and a different proportion voting rights held in such unconsolidated entity. What is the voting share we have? What is the number of shares we have? Then we need to give the what this is the interest usually. The nature and extent of the significant restriction on the ability of the unconsolidated subsidiary to transfer the fund to the investment entity in form of cash dividend or repay loans or advances may be unconsolidated subsidiary by the investment entity. So what kind of nature of investment we made and is there any restriction? Why we are speaking about restriction now is money is been there. We can't take out the money. There is a problem in taking out the money. If we have taken that and the investment company is doing some problems and they are not transfer the fund to equity investment entity in the form of cash flow, they are not paying the cash flow or they may have invested something but they have given loan, they are giving dividend or they have given some loan to us or they we have given some advance to them, such a kind anything is happening in the unconsolidated subsidiary statement, we should report that too. The current commitment and intention to provide financial other supporting to the unconsolidated subsidiary, including commitments or intention to assist the subsidiary to obtaining financial support. Is there any promise? So the unconsolidated subsidiary about any financial support, any commitment. We are going to give some new project. Any intention of that? What is the intention of holding that? That is also need to be given in that significant interest. That is also significant interest. We should disclose that. Interest in the joint arrangement and associates. Joint arrangement include joint operation and joint venture. The entity shall disclose information enable the user of the financial statement to evaluate the nature, extent, and financial effect of the interest in joint arrangement and associate, including the nature and effect of the contractual relationship with the investor with a joint control of and significant influence over a joint arrangement and associates. So what is the nature, what is the extent, how much you're going to give, what is the financial support we are giving to this joint arrangement, how much assets we have given, how much loan we have got, what is the obligation we have to complete everything to be said. The nature of the changes, if there are any change in the joint venture proportion, we need to mention the risk associated with the interest. Some kind of risk whereas this contract we have did it become absolute. There is no money going to receive, or there is going great boom. Government is going to take over the contract. And they're going to repay about the interest. Some kind of thing happening now. That's a potential thing. Now they need to inform that in the report. Interest in the unconsolidated structure entities. Entity shall disclose information that enables user of enrichment. They need to disclose these kind of information. What are the kind of this information? Understand the nature and extent of interest in unconsolidated structure entities. The unconsolidated structure entities, what is the nature? That's how much invest money you have made, where is the place it's located, now what is the proportion of shares you have, what is the proportion of voting price you have, is there any risk is going to arise from the unconsolidated structure entities? These are the things. Evaluate the nature and changes and risk associated with the interest in unconsolidated structure entities. Is there any risk of the investment made? Is the money is able to recover it? Yeah, investment is liquid. The liquidity is a very good thing we should see. Whether our investment is liquid or not, we should see. So these are the things you need to see in this accounting standard.